Hello, hope you're doing well. So this video is a bit of a response to several different videos actually. So recently I saw James Griffiths, another vinyl community YouTuber, do a video where he showed 4 albums by 4 artists, 4x4. And he did a great job of it, and he was actually doing a response video to Vinyl Dale. So as a result, I've gone back to Vinyl Dale's channel and watched some of his latest content that I missed out on. He recently got original pressings of some of the Oasis albums, which I was really impressed with. So anyway, this is a response to that. I'm going to be showing 4 albums from 4 artists. 16 records all in all to show. But I've done a bit of a spin on it because this is kind of also a response to the Static Traveller, because he did a video saying, what artists do you know have got 3 perfect albums in a row? And he was kind of pointing out that that's actually very hard to do, because even stuff like Led Zeppelin has got like 1 or 2 dodgy tracks. So this is sort of like my spin and my response to several different videos in the vinyl community. So I've chosen 4 artists which I believe sum me up very well and represent me as a music listener, 4 of my favourite artists of all time actually. So let's get cracking, shall we? The first artist I'm going to talk about is the one and only Blur. I've got 5 Blur LPs, but I'm going to show 4, which I believe to be probably my favourite 4 albums from them. So I have everything by Blur, but I only have the albums Modern Life is Rubbish through to 13, because I believe that is the true golden period. But this is their best album ever. This is one of the greatest albums possibly ever made. I think it's perfect, pretty much. And there's no other album which quite gives me the nostalgia that this album gave me. My parents listened to this when I was very young, and every single song on this album is just implanted in my brain permanently. Culturally, it was a huge album. I don't think there's any young adult who was pretty young in 1994 who didn't have this on CD. And also, this is a vinyl pressing from 2015 or 2016. Yeah, it must be 2015 actually. I got it right at the beginning of 2016 with Christmas money that year, and now it's shot up in value. Now it's like £100 to buy. Comes on yellow vinyl. So the album that came after that was The Great Escape, which is pretty much Parklife Part 2. I actually think this album's a bit underrated, if I'm being honest. A lot of people dismiss this one, and they just go straight to the self-titled or 13 or Parklife, but actually this album's incredible. The last couple of tracks drag on a bit, but most of it's solid. And then you get to the big one for a lot of people, the self-titled. This was much bigger in America than the Britpop albums, and of course spawned Song 2, their biggest song ever. This is another great album. I pretty much hold it in the same regard as The Great Escape, as in it's very solid but kind of falls apart slightly to the end, but not too badly. Mostly very good. Then another personal favourite, 13, which is my personal favourite. This is more of a divisive Blur record, really. They kind of got away from their typical sound on this album and brought in William Orbit, who's actually one of my favourite producers, which might contribute to my love of this album somewhat. So yeah, that's a personal favourite, really, 13. So that's 4 brilliant, amazing Blur albums in a row. So we'll move on to the next artist now. Going with another very popular one once again, we have Tame Impala. This was their debut album, In a Speaker. This is a really good psych rock album from 2010, sort of bringing the great psych rock sounds of the 60s and bringing them up to date for the new generation, with really thoughtful songwriting and great guitar playing and great production. This was recorded on in a beach hut or something, like a beach shack with 180-degree views of the Indian Ocean, and it represents kind of feelings of solitude and being content with your own company when you're just having a great time making music. And then the second Tame Impala album, In a Speaker, which is everything the first album did, but did it so much more and even better than the first album. Even more keyboards and arpeggios on this record. The back cover really does represent what this album kind of sounds like. Just a guy kind of retreating into himself, sitting in a big room full of equipment, recording all the instruments, writing all the songs, and just getting lost in this magical world of sound. Absolutely majestic stuff. A lot of this was recorded in Paris, this album. And then his third record Currents, which was sort of the big hit which launched him into the mainstream. And everybody knows about this album, and everybody knows about Tame Impala generally, I mean, it's just a very popular thing. But this album really did sort of boost the popularity. I mean, one of the songs on this album has got 2 billion streams on Spotify. It spawned big hits like Let It Happen and, tracks like that. So a wonderful album. And then we get to the fourth album. So this is The Slow Rush. This is a great album, but not, in my opinion, nowhere near as good as the first three. But I still consider it to be really good, and I still do listen to it and think it has a unique sound. All these albums have got unique sounds, to be honest. Like, all four of the Tame Impala records have their own unique sort of place and time which you can go to by listening to the record. And this has its own sound to it, which is separate. So the next artist I've picked is the one and only John Cale. Fun fact, I kind of actually prefer John Cale's solo work to the Velvet Underground, just the way that it goes, really. I do quite like the Velvet Underground album with the banana on it, and the self-titled. It's pretty good, but I just like Cale when he's on his own. I like his voice. I think he's got a very rich Welsh voice. Just sounds really grand and sort of royal. He had a run of albums in the 70s which I deem to be pretty much perfect. This was Paris 1919, released on Reprise Records. And then after that he released a record called Fear, which has an album cover which is both fearful and fear-inducing. I got really lucky with this. I got an original pressing on Island Records, which is quite hard to find. But the cover's in good condition, and where the cover has sort of been vaguely damaged, it actually, I think, adds to it a bit. And then after that, he released a record called Slow Dazzle, which has got a great cover of Heartbreak Hotel on it. This is another Island original. And then after that, he released another album within the same year called Helena Troy. So all these three albums have got a very similar sound. They kind of are like a trilogy. But the fact that he's wearing a straight jacket and leather trousers very much sums up John Cale in the 1970s, deranged and a rock star at the same time. He had a bit of an Ozzy Osbourne incident in the late 70s where he cut the head off of a chicken or something, like a bit of a mad thing to happen, live on stage. So finally, the final artist, another one of my all-time favourites, we have Gentle Giant. For me, these guys, without a doubt, had 4 great albums in a row, maybe even 5 or 6 great albums in a row. But this was Free Friends, which is probably their first masterpiece album. It's sort of a concept album which sort of follows the lives of 3 friends from when they were at school right through to going on to doing different things. It's a great concept record. If you can find the original Vertigo swirl of this album, you're in the money basically, because they will go for a lot. And then after that, they released this album, Octopus, which is pretty much as perfect as an album can be as far as I'm concerned. The album title is a bit of a pun because it's got 8 songs, so Oct and Opus, 8 opuses. And it's complete with that wonderful Roger Dean cover, which is very typical of hundreds of other Roger Dean album covers that he did around that time for various prog bands and other artists. A lot of people I know don't really like these guys or haven't given them a proper try because their music is quite uncommercial and sort of difficult to listen to. But I think if you like Genesis or Supertramp or a lot of those sort of 70s bands, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to like these. I don't think they're that much less accessible than those sort of bands, really. And this album is just a total masterpiece. I like it so much I've got another pressing. This is an Italian pressing from the 70s, and the writing is off to the side. It's on the Vertigo spaceship. And then the album that followed that was an album called In a Glass House, which I'm actually very happy and very lucky to have on vinyl because it's a bit of a sought-after one. It's very scarcely been reissued, and I have an original from 1973 when this came out, and it sounds so good, such clarity. There's a bit of crackle in the quieter sections, but considering this is a slab of vinyl which is well over half a century old at this point, it's pretty incredible. You'd never believe it was that old. And And this is one of their most, I suppose there are some real peculiar moments on this album, but then All Gentle Giant is pretty peculiar. But this has got some of their best stuff on it. And another masterpiece, one of their best albums. This was released on WWA Records, which was the record label of the manager of both Gentle Giant and Black Sabbath. So for both Gentle Giant and Black Sabbath, the first 4 albums were Vertigo Swirl, and then the 5th and 6th albums were on this label, because they shared the same management, I suppose. But if you think about it, it just blows my mind, really, the amount of creativity and just genius musicianship that was going on in those days. I mean, in 1973, you had this coming out, and you had Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, you know, on the same label at the same time. It just totally blows my mind. And that was after following 4 genius first albums, you know, from both Giant and from Sabbath. So it just blows my mind, this period of music. You know, the late 60s, the early 70s. It's just kind of incredible, inconceivable to sort of think what was going on back then, you know. And finally, the 4th Gentle Giant record, which I think is perfect and a masterpiece, is The Power and the Glory. This one in particular is a Stephen Wilson remix of the original album, and it's probably benefited from being given that remix and that sort of slightly up-to-date sound, you know, with a bit more bass in the mix and whatnot. This is another absolute masterpiece. It's one of the best albums. It's another concept album about, you know, sort of power and greed and things like that. Yeah, originally this was like an actual playing card. The actual record was the shape of the card. But with this reissue, they've sort of adapted it to be more like your typical sort of gatefold sleeve. But yeah, really good to have this one on vinyl. This is falling out. Yeah, if you want to collect Gentle Giant on vinyl, they're a pretty damn expensive band to collect, really, because, I mean, original pressings are like hen's teeth, you know, you're going to be playing triple figures for those. But even the reissues, I mean, this record's like 40 quid, 50 quid, so you got to be really into them to want to collect them. I got lucky and I got quite a lot of them for a very good price. I think I paid, this one I paid like 33 or something. So yeah, that was it. 4 bands, 4 albums. Why don't you respond to this video? Even if you've never posted a YouTube video before, just post one and talk about the albums and show what you got. Yeah, that was it, and I shall catch you again very, very soon. Goodbye.